Hey everybody, this is Devin bringing you another video about a topic this time that I get asked pretty much all the time, and that's how do you get a job or a career in esports? This is different from a pro player, right? This is different from like becoming a pro player in esports, which I think is a whole separate video. And it's also different from like getting a career in gaming, where that is something that's like totally separate too. We're really talking about how to get a career in esports. And I want to break it down into 3 sections. My goal here is to really have you leave this video with like a really good idea of how to do this. And by the way, like if you're not interested in a job in esports, the techniques that I want to teach in this video should still be able to add a lot of value if you're trying to get a job in something else. It should just be kind of like general principle stuff. The first thing I want to cover is the industry as a whole. Let's talk about like what esports is and isn't. First, I think that esports doesn't work like traditional companies work, these big corporations. You don't have a situation where the staff is just going to keep going up and up and up, because the service that the esports team provides really is like fielding the team. They don't sell products really beyond the merchandise. They're not like innovating to have R&D or like big HR departments or stuff like that. So you're probably not going to get over 100 or maybe 200 at maximum. I'm not sure how many traditional sports teams have employees for like even the big esports teams, which means that it's going to be highly competitive to get in as a career. The other thing is that there are a lot more esports teams than the big ones. A lot of people know the Big Ten because of the LCS and CSGO, but there's a lot of great esports teams that are actually smaller, and I think that the owners of those teams are much more receptive. And one example that I'll give is a friend of mine, a guy named David, and he runs a company called Panda Global. And Panda Global, like, they don't have like an LCS team, but they're a great organization. They're sponsored by Geico. They're serious. And I know that he looks for people all the time. And like, if you send that person an email, you're much more likely to get a response than if you send an email to a direct contact at one of the big organizations. Hopefully they'll still respond to you, but they might not have as much bandwidth for you because they get hundreds of emails a day. So that's the first piece of advice, is like, are you looking in the right area? You know, there's so many people that email me every day and they want a job at CLG, and like, I'm honored, that's great, but there's not much I can do for those people, because like I have so many people that are coming and asking me about that a lot of people are not looking at the smaller channels that might make sense, and having a portfolio with one of those teams might allow you to get into one of the bigger teams, because you now have that contact and that experience like a year or two later down the line. At least you're in the industry. And this is actually the same concept, to digress a little bit, that a lot of people think about when using skills. Like if I wanted to learn martial arts, I would go to like the second or third best instructor of a particular art. I wouldn't go to like the #1 person that like everybody is trying to go to. And I know I'm going to get like 95% of the value. I don't need that #1 spot, like the most famous person. People just think like, they think they're too big. Like you don't need to go for the CLG or the C9. You know, there are great organizations that you can learn from. So it's a highly competitive industry, and I think that's where you have to start, is with the smaller organizations. Now that said, like let's get into like some of the skills that are most useful for someone in esports. And in general, I think both of these skills are like life-changing if you can do them. #1 is sales. Sales, I think, is particularly relevant in esports because it is something that is pretty tough for a lot of gamers to do. There's a lot of gamers are introverted. They're not like really out there and they really want to like sell to people. There have been some that I've met, but it's definitely few and far between. If you know how to sell product, if you know how to sell services or sell sponsorships, that's an immediate way to provide value to an esports organization. A second way to do it is one that I think a lot more people on this channel who are watching this channel can identify to, and that's to create content. And by the way, again, I think these are things that are just crazy skills. No matter what your job is, creating content can add value to any job. Doing sales and knowing how to sell stuff can add value to any job. So these are just skills in general for life. Content creation is great. Knowing how to do a YouTube video, knowing how to do an Adobe Premiere edit, those are all like really important skills. And if you get quite good at them, I think that is probably what esports is going to need. They're going to need people that bridge the communication gap between B2B and other companies and do deals and partnerships for them. And they're going to need high quality video that tells a compelling narrative of their player stories. This is also something that I know as an esports CEO, I am always on the lookout for. I always want to try to find a person who can create great content. And if they can tell great stories, that is a super valuable thing. And from my experience, the only way you get good with a camera is like shooting over and over and over again. Like I think you just have to do a lot of content. So like you should have a YouTube channel, you should have a portfolio. And then I think the third one is maybe something that I haven't thought of. And I'll use a story from CLG actually. This is kind of cool. Like Hotshot was streaming. Hotshot's the owner of the company. And he was streaming, I think, and he mentioned that we needed like a cook. And our current cook, Andrew, sent me a message knowing that I was like the hiring recruiter and immediately said like, look, like all I want to do is work for CLG. I'll work for nothing. I'll do whatever you want. Like just give me a shot. And I gave him an interview and it turns out he was fantastic, super passionate, very skilled. And he was on a plane over, I think, the next week. And it was not even something like I could never have imagined that we would have needed a cook, but he changed the lives of so many people at CLG because he implemented all of these strategies where now, as a company, we're feeding 45 to 50 people 3 times a day. And it's really quite amazing that he was able to do this and CLG and him kind of just like formed this Voltron that added so much value to so many people because that was a skill set that I never saw that could be applied to esports. Another really great example is physical therapy. We have a guy named Matthew who comes in. I think he's part of an organization that he runs called 1HP Gamers. I believe that's right. Matthew Hugh. And he also changed the way that we thought about things. He does physical assessments of the players, helps them with their workout routines, helps them with physical fitness, and has been a massive value add to the company. So maybe there's a skill that you have that I'm not thinking of. The sales and content creation are just the two that I think are probably immediately relevant and things that I can think of that like companies will always need. But there may be something that you can do that you can explain to someone about that may be really important to an organization and we just don't know it yet. So that said, let's talk about guidelines. Let's talk about like, okay, I have this skill and I can do sales, but how do I actually like talk to a person or how do I actually make this happen? I have 3 suggestions about this. The number one thing that I think you can do is, and they all center around the same thing, by the way, is that you need to do everything you can to remove the risk from your employer. It is a massive risk for me to hire you. It is a massive risk for me to hire a person because I have to train them. I have to bring them into my organization. I have to introduce them to everybody. It's my ass on the line if that person messes up. I also have to have the really tough conversation with them to tell them they're not performing or to fire them if it goes that direction. And it just sucks. Like no one wants to do that. And so I am not going to take a risk on a person if I can avoid it. If a person emails me and they put in their resume and their cover letter, they're telling me right there, hey, you take all the risk. Here's my resume and here's my cover letter. Read these 2 pieces of paper, and from those pieces of paper, you will be convinced that I am the right choice. That's asking me to believe in you and put all the risk on me. It's not something that I usually want to do, and the only way that you can really get around that is to lower the risk for me. So, for example, one of my favorite things that I say a lot, and people give me a lot of trouble for it, is work for free. This is how I got started at Team Dignitas. When I was at Team Dignitas I believe like my initial position was like a volunteer life coach or something. I opted to fly down and I opted to go to the house as much as they wanted me to, and I would do workshops with the players and try to help them become stronger versions of themselves. I had no intention of getting paid. I just legitimately saw them as, it's actually the exact same reason I do this job now. It's because I see the players as mouthpieces to a huge amount of 18 to 35-year-olds who I think will listen to them about life advice and listen to them about improving their life. And if they see Darshan going to the gym and just getting after it every day, they're going to want to do that too. And it's going to improve people's lives by proxy. So I went for that objective. I went to provide massive value. And within 3 months, I was a full-time paid person running North America because I demonstrated that I wanted to add that value and I removed the risk from Team Dignitas' ownership of doing it. And then by that time, I had the credentials, right, that I could potentially move on to other esports organizations, but I earned it. So I like working for free. A lot of people have a problem with this. people that have a problem with this are like, well, I can't work for free. I need to pay bills. And it's like, you need to, maybe then you're not just thinking long-term enough, and you need to save money for 6 months or a year until you can then reach this goal. But nothing changes the fact that, like, if you don't remove the risk from the employer, you are not going to have as high of a chance as someone who does. So I don't really care if a person doesn't like it. That's just the truth. It's like working for free for someone is always demonstrably a good way to get into something. And if you're like young, and I mean like young by like below 35, I actually think there's like no excuse. Like I would still work for free for people. It doesn't matter if I have like a background as like a CEO or whatever. If I thought that there was a job that was like way above my pay grade where I could learn a ton, I would definitely work at that job for free. And I don't care. The second thing is you need to have, we were talking about the kind of resume and cover letter that doesn't really add value to me. It just like kind of asks me to do something. Instead, I think you should have a demonstratable portfolio for your resume. So if you are a content creator, you should have 5-10 videos in that resume that are resonating with me and have something to do with esports. Actually, preferably, you should have a video in that resume that is actually custom made for Counterlogic Gaming. And it's like a amalgamation. It's like a compilation of clips from CLG's highlights or plays or something. Just say, hey, I made you this video. I included it in my resume. No reply needed. You can actually use the video on YouTube if you want. And if you like it, I'll make you another one for free. Just let me know and send me an email back. That would be really cool. But you know why no one wants to do that? Because, oh, what happens if they do that whole video and then I don't see it? What happens if they do that whole video and it's just wasted because they don't get the job? And that is such a messed up way of thinking. It pisses me off, actually. It makes me upset because when people say things like that, they're not realizing that like they're not willing to put in the work to take the risk to put the value forward. And yeah, you may not make it. And that's the whole point. And if you think like that, I probably don't want to hire you anyway, because if you're a person who doesn't want to take the risk to provide something of value, not knowing if you'll get something back, then you probably suck as a person in the first place. And so the value that you get out of making something, like I would seriously think if you were like a cook, you could, I don't even know what you do, like take a picture of some Cloud9 themed cookies and take a picture of it and then be like, hey, can I send you these cookies? I made them for you. Right? I know that's a little bit creepy, but like you do something like that and you do a demonstration. Here's what I can do. Make a birthday cake. Take a small video of it. Upload it on YouTube. Any kind of thing that's on your skills. If you're like a professional knitter and you're just convinced like my knitting skill is going to change this organization's life and you knit everybody a new pair of socks, great, right? You're adding that value with no expectation in return. People are going to respond to that. And at the very worst, you have that as a demonstration of a portfolio for future job offers. So if you did make that video and I never looked at it, then you still could go to Cloud9 or Immortals or whoever and be like, look at this video I made. These guys didn't want my services, but I can do it for you. And hey, I made a custom video for you. So I think you have to have a portfolio of demonstratable results. I would never apply for a job if I didn't have a portfolio that I attached with it. No matter what that job asks for, I'm gonna try to tailor my resume and my cover letter and my portfolio as much as possible to that job's needs. This also applies if you don't have work experience. That's the thing that I hear a lot, is like, I don't have any work experience. If I don't have any work experience, how do I get a job? You demonstrate that you have the skill through a portfolio. If you can make videos, you make a ton of videos. If you have a YouTube, like the question that I would ask is, if you had a YouTube channel with 200 videos that got some views and one of them popped off and got like 20,000 views, would I be more likely to talk to you, or would an employer be more likely to talk to you, no matter what your job is? Absolutely. It's a value add. It's another skill that you have. So it just shows that you're just doing stuff. Keep working on your own portfolio. Your own brand is like the only play. The jokes that I always give to my players, because I'm always trying to convince them to do social media, I say, would the conversation that you're having with almost every human being be different if you had 400 to 500,000 Twitter followers? And the answer is invariably yes, because we've moved into an era where currency is partially social. And that's going to increase, by the way. Like the more followers you have and the more impact you have on people, the more that is worth something. And so if you can, to people, and the more that you have influence, you get people to buy stuff and whatever else that kind of following can do. Or you just be in the public, and it's important. So to the extent that you can get out there, I think it matters. Anyway, just as an overview, I would say try to take the risk away from the employer. Try to add massive value. And if you really don't know where to start, you should look at content creation and sales. It's my hope that this video provided some value to you. And I do think getting a job in esports is more than possible. I think you can start small, like I was talking about, and eventually get up into the big teams and achieve your dream, but you got to work for it. You can't expect to just submit a resume and a cover letter and have that go out with the other 400. I remember, this is a story I've told before, but I reviewed 750 applications once for a player development coach for the LCS team. It was insane. And it was so many. It hit the front page of Reddit, so it just went crazy. And this is when CLG was like winning, like we were first place in like a bunch of tournaments and stuff. So everybody wanted to work there. So it's a lot of applications. Like I'll usually get 100 to 150 per job, and that's not native to esports. Actually, there's like a lot of that. Actually happens a lot just in general. So if you want to stand out from the competition, you have to be an anomaly. And I think the easiest way to be an anomaly is to build a portfolio and remove the risk from someone to hire you. Hope this helps. Hope this provided value to you. If it did, or you have comments or anything you want to know or any follow-up stuff, or you have any questions that you want to ask me for another video, please do post a comment in the section below. I read them all. I respond to as many as I can, and it means a lot to me when people post comments, especially if you tell me that something actually made a positive impact on you. That's like my oxygen, why I keep doing these. Thank you so much, and looking forward to seeing you again next time.